course, it started it at the end. There we go. So the SPA has a grant with the RFBC, which is the Regional Food Business Center, but it goes hand in hand with the RSFI, which is the Resilient Food System Infrastructure Program. And that has a grant opportunity through DANR, which is Department of Ag and Natural Resources in South Dakota. And so I'm just going to cover some of the highlights and then I can answer any questions that you might have. These are the key dates: March 10th submission, and then the performance line is May 25th through the 27th. Now the equipment, there's two parts of this grant. There's an infrastructure grant and there's an equipment. The equipment grants can be 1 year in duration. They don't have to run clear till 2027. There was 2 recorded office hours, and you can get a hold of Timothy if you would like to view either one of those that was held. And it basically was an overview of both times and then a Q&A section from producers that were interested. Here's the overview. It is middle of the food chain by expanding capacity. Again, as I said, it was, infrastructure and equipment. So these were the grant priorities: the processing capacity, cold storage, transportation, and equipment. And then they break down a little bit. They have had a lot of interest, I do know, which is good, but they still do have over $2 million to give away. These are the grant amounts. The infrastructure is 100,000 to 2.95. You can see it plus there. And then the simplified equipment grants, and they are different templates. So if you go out to the DANR website, then and search for RSFI, there is a template for the infrastructure and there's a template for the equipment only grant. The equipment only grant, excuse me, has no match, but it has to be a minimum of $10,000. And every piece of equipment that you buy has to equal $5,000 or more. So, excuse me, you'd have to buy at least 2 pieces of equipment, and those pieces of equipment need to be cohesive. That means that you can't go ask for a pea sheller and a delivery truck. Somehow those pieces of equipment need to connect together. The infrastructure grants, this is going to be kind of a tough one if you don't have some of your ducks in a row, because of the economic impact study has to be 45 days. And we are under that for the deadline. So that might be a little tough one if you don't have some of your ducks in a row. There is a checklist, and one of the things that is catching some people out is that they don't have a UEI, which is a unique identifier through SAM.gov. It does take a little bit of time. It doesn't cost anything to get one of these numbers, but you do have to have one of those to be able to apply for this grant. The other thing is that on the one of the applications, on the applications it says it, and then on the checklist it doesn't, but irregardless, you must have quotes for every piece of equipment that you want. And then you do need an evidence of critical infrastructure letter. And many conversations with Timothy says those that are ready to go with their boots on the ground will have a little bit of an edge because they want to get these going just because of the lack of time. So in your application, if you're ready to go and all of your infrastructure is in place, and say you're just going for cold storage, say, I'm completely ready to go. I just need cold storage to expand my operation. So again, the more clear that you are that you're ready to go and XYZ is in place, that'll give you a little bit of an edge. The planning districts are actually the TAs. They have been divided up, and so there is a map on the DANR website, or if you just Google the planning districts, but this is the overall way they're broke up. and they do have technical dollars to help you and write these grants. SPA is reviewing some, and we're teaming up with Value Added. We're doing that under our FBC grant. Again, we won't, write the grants for you, but we've reviewed, I think 4 of them now, and just give some, some tips on things that we see maybe you should include or clarify. There is a scoring matrix in the grant applications. I would make sure that you go and look at both of those so that you, again, include all of those parts that they're looking for. Is there any questions about the RFSI? What's allowable, what's not allowable? And I encourage you to go for it. That the infrastructure grants do have a match. So the minimum that you would need to do in kind or cash is 100,000. But again, the equipment grants have no match. So a minimum of 10,000 up to 100,000. So if you're needing cold storage, and again, it's middle of the food chain. So I'm going to go back to this previous slide here. So you'll see that the supply chain is actually a 4-stage. It's production, processing, aggregation, distribution, and marketing to consumers. The 2 stages that are allowable in this grant are the processing and the aggregation. And we have asked about, like getting a trailer or a delivery vehicle to deliver your CSA. That is not allowed because that's direct to consumer. But for some reason, if you say that you're going to go to farmers market, that piece of equipment would be allowed, but you're not necessarily selling out of it. You wouldn't want to say, I'm going to use a piece of equipment for transportation to sell at the farmers market. And again, Timothy wasn't sure why that was the case, but he just shared that information with me. Any questions? All right, I will let this meeting back to Morgan.
Thank you, Peggy. And if anyone has questions after the fact, Peggy's PowerPoint is linked in the agenda, so you can reference it if you're interested in applying. Is your contact information on there, Peggy, anywhere?
It isn't, but I'll go in and add that.
Okay.
I'll go add that so that if they open it up, it's at the bottom.
Great. Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great day. Bye.
All right, now that we've had a few other people join, I want to give the people who would like to a chance to introduce themselves. So I'll go first, and then anyone else can feel free to unmute and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your farm or operation. My name is Morgan Hughes, and I stepped into Laura's position in September, and I work with SPA specifically on their specialty crop block grants on aggregation, retail marketing, and then producer education and networking.
I can step up next, I guess. So my name is Rick Grosick. I work for SPA also. I am the Urban Agriculture Liaison. So helping small farmers get going and working with the NRCS on high tunnels and drip irrigation lines and shelter belts and pollinator habitats and all that type of thing. So if you have any questions in areas like those, feel free to reach out.
I am Michelle Grosick, and Rick and I are rarely on meetings together, but today we are. And we own Bear Butte Gardens, which is 5 miles outside of Sturgis, and grow certified organic vegetables. And so that's the reason I'm on this meeting, is to hear vegetable talk. There's never too much vegetable talk in the world. So looking forward to it.
Hi, this is Kyle Haraldson with Haraldson Farms near Brookings, South Dakota. And we also do certified organic vegetables.
Great. Is anyone else?
Sure, I'm Jared Lukens Black. I have Budding Moon Farm in Spearfish and do a CSA with vegetables here.
Wonderful. SPA also has a podcast episode with Jared on it, talking about a little bit more about their CSA. So if anyone is interested, find it on our YouTube too. If no one else wants to introduce themselves, we can jump right into the few agenda items that we do have. Starting with different distribution outlets for excess produce that you might have. This was one of the topics or questions that was put onto the Google form I sent out to add agenda items. And it looks like they were looking for what other local producers do with their excess produce, even if that was sending it straight to the compost pile. So I'm curious to hear if any of you have anything to add, or if you would tell a little bit about what you're doing with excess produce.
So we go ahead and do a lot of food processing in our commercial kitchen here. We do canning, dehydrating, freezing, trying to think, just like cooking it into meals and such that we, have for our kind of agritourism events, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's, and the grant that Peggy was just talking about will probably apply for some cold storage and that sort of thing, since we work with a lot of producers and aggregate products, so that we could hopefully hand some of that off to like the local school system and some of that maybe as well.
I've only got a couple items that I occasionally have excess of, just overplant, especially early in the year when hail's more likely, with lettuce and other leafy greens, just to be ready for successions being wiped out. But when that doesn't happen, then the food pantry always is happy for lettuce and leafy greens. It's easy for their participants, people that pick up there, to use that. They don't have to have a whole lot of time or specialized cooking equipment to deal with it. And then the only other occasional excess is tomatoes. And I do the same thing with it. So just depending on the time of year, once you start to get a glut. So overplant to get everyone early tomatoes and late tomatoes, and then there's kind of a glut in the middle that sometimes I take to the food pantry.
Thank you both for answering that. One other thing that I want to point out kind of on this topic is that in April, SPA is going to be having regional aggregation meetings over Zoom. One of the topics for that is actually community composting, and just kind of some different farms that are composting and programs that producers might want to get involved in. So if you're interested in learning more about the composting option, the meetings might interest you. Another, trying to talk. Another,
I'll answer a little on that question. I'll say hi. I'm AJ. My business is primarily livestock focused, but I do have a market garden too. So anything excess that I have goes to pigs. Different option.
yes, thank you for sharing. If anyone else has any thoughts, feel free to jump in, but Another topic that came up on that Google Sheet was interest in greenhousing contractors or options for getting a greenhouse put up. So anyone who is using greenhouse type equipment, if you have anything to share, feel free to jump in.
Well, I guess I can speak up a little bit there. Our experience on our farm, we put up a high tunnel that was funded through EQIP back in 2012. And like many people do, we just put it up ourselves. But for the main raising of it, where we put all the rafter hoops together, we got volunteers from our community, kind of a barn raising type feel to it, and put the hoops and the purlins on. Then after that, I did it all kind of on evenings and weekends, and it took a couple of months for me to get it all done. But that's the method that we used. There's much faster and better ways to do it. I just thought I'd throw that out. And I'll add one more thing. Out on the Bear Butte Gardens YouTube channel, we have several videos that cover those different steps. So step by step how we did it. That's all.
Rick, do you happen to have the link handy to your YouTube? Would you put it in the chat if you're able?
I will find that. I will do that.
So Morgan, do you know, like, that, so the topic of greenhouses and equipment and that sort of thing was something that somebody stated that they would like to have addressed?
Yeah,
Or,
I think they were looking for specifically greenhouse contractors and people's experience with them. And if anyone on the meeting was the one that put that on the sheet, feel free to clarify your question.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't, you know, I think that somebody could do a heck of a business with that in South Dakota, and maybe there's somebody in East River that does go around and put up greenhouses. We've tried to convince our son that he would be awesome at that and that he should get into that business, but I think he figures dealing with mom and dad is bad enough, and he doesn't want to be beholden to the other quirky gardeners out in the world. But gosh, there is a lot of demand for that, even just for little hobby size, you know, green, especially I think for those, because those people want their greenhouse up, like, you know, they think about it in April and they want it up by gardening season to do something. And it would be a great business to go into. And I think there'd be a lot of demand for it. I don't know how much money you could make on it, but probably be worth some sort of investigation into that.
We put all ours up as well. I know in the past, there was one out of, I can't remember the name, but one out of Minnesota that they kind of sold the tunnel with them putting it up. And it was just way too expensive for what we were looking for. But you can do it a lot cheaper doing it yourself, obviously, if you have the time and people and equipment. But I don't know if anybody has any good suppliers that they've worked with. I'm shopping around for one now.
We got our kit through Farm Tech, but you know, lately I've been ordering supplies through Knolts, and for just whatever supplies I need, like new plastic's probably not the best example, but polycarbonate panels or drip tape and that kind of stuff. Knolts is usually about half the cost of everyone else, and they're out of Iowa, so that's kind of nice. I'm pretty sure I have a catalog sitting here. Have you worked with them at all, Kyle?
I'm familiar with them. I haven't bought anything from them, but
Yeah, I think they have. a greenhouse kit or two. Yeah, they've got like some frame, yeah. I'm looking at it right now. They have like frames and then all of the basic plastic and such, I believe, to go over it. Yeah, they do have kits, it looks like.
I posted 2 links to the chat. The first one is just a link to our Bearview Gardens YouTube channel. And then the second one, I got smarter and I figured out how to grab the link to our playlist for just the set of videos that we have out there pertaining to our high tunnel. So the second list is probably better than the first for you.
Thank you, Rick. I also moved them to the agenda in case anyone looks afterwards.
Thank you.
Jared, who do you order your kits through?
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in. I worked with Tunnel Vision. They're out of Ohio. Kind of a smaller company, but I did that specifically for their movable tunnel. But they do more other stationary tunnels, but they were great to work with. Like I even had the guy's cell phone number and called him on a Saturday when I was building. And he picked right up, or if I had to leave a message, he'd call me back too on Saturdays. So they were wonderful to work with. And yeah, I was gonna jump in. I built mine myself, but looking for the second one, I've been looking to have someone else build it just by calculating out my time and how what it ends up costing. I was even looking at flying someone from Ohio who's familiar with building their movable ones to do it, and it just my dollar per hour versus their total cost just made sense, but trying to coordinate it's kind of tough for them. So but yeah, you can do it can do it either way, but if you figure out, like Rick said, how many hours it ends up taking, if you honestly calculate it per person, you know that it's not one person, and whatever you value your dollars per hour as, you know, it's also really tough to build or have a reliable build time in the quote off season or more off season. So like Michelle said, if somebody would get into it here, is thinking about that opportunity, it would be, I think, a killer opportunity, you know, for someone who's got a little bit of experience doing it, for sure.
Well, and also, you know, your production time within your greenhouse, you know, if you're doing it on your own, Rick and I have been talking about that. If we do a high tunnel this year, when is it actually going to be ready for production? I guess if we get a really strong group of people together and get our ducks in a row, we might be able to have it going by June. But more than likely, it's going to be like fall by the time we have it done. So that's a whole season, or essentially a couple seasons with a high tunnel that you're missing out on of production time there. So there's that too.
Yeah, it's a good point, Michelle, that, you know, that even just missing a couple weeks of tomato season, even if that's all you're planting in there, you know, that could be right there, be a few $1,000s that would pay for someone to cover it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just wanted to mention that the way that we put up our high tunnel, we're kind of on top of a windy rolling hill out here. So putting it up strong enough to withhold the wind was additional materials and additional time and labor to make it really strong. And then we still lost the top pretty quickly the first time there. So at this point, after years of learning and experimenting, I feel that our high tunnel can withstand winds of up to 65 miles an hour, but it took a long time to get to that point. If anybody's interested in having those types of discussions of the details of the construction with the materials, and how to make it stand up to the wind. I'm glad to visit with you on that type of thing as well. So. Oh, and we're organic certified also, so some of the materials going into it, we cannot use treated lumber and that type of thing. So if anybody's interested in a discussion on the materials to put up a high tunnel to make it organic certifiable, let me know on that too. I'd be glad to have that discussion.
Okay, the greenhouse and the distribution of excess produce were the only two that were put into the form. But I just want to open it up if anyone on the meeting has any other topics they want to discuss amongst the group or questions. We can do that now. One thing that I would be, one thing that I would be interested in hearing from you all is topics that you would be interested in having different webinars or podcasts or educational materials from specialty producers. That's something that I am doing in my role, and a little bit Rick in his role as well. So hearing any suggestions directly from the producers is always something that we value. That way we know what we're putting out people are looking for.
I'll think about that and let you guys know if I come up with some ideas there. Or if I hear from some other people, other producers, what they would like. AJ, are you looking to get into like vegetables more, or is the pork production keeping you pretty busy?
So I have my own operation, but then I also work for a nonprofit down here, and we are looking into the potential of kind of self-producing a little bit larger scale to supply the food distribution program down here in Pine Ridge. So we want to try and kind of develop 5 farmers to kind of specialty crops. So we're thinking like things that we can store. So we're trying to just get a better understanding, like what does it look like to grow an acre of potatoes, an acre of onions, an acre of cabbage, to be able to get through some of the programs we have down here. So I'm kind of listening in, seeing what producers around are doing, and so yes and no.
So I know that Kyle Cox does some larger scale production on some of that stuff. I don't honestly know like how much. Yeah, I don't know if he does an acre of potatoes. But when he goes into something like last year, he did beets and he grew a lot of beets. I don't know what the square footage was of the beets that he was growing, but he's kind of a good resource for ideas on how to do a little bit larger production like that. And then some of the equipment, he gets some pretty cool equipment to work with too. We have a root crop washer if you have need for it, AJ. It's just been sitting in our yard for what, a few years now. We haven't even been using it. So it was part of a workshop deal and we ended up with it, that you can use a root crop washer. We would.
Nice. We will probably come check it out sometime.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, I know Kyle, and yeah, it's a good resource for a little larger, but I think like 30,000 pounds of potatoes having an acre is a doable wholesale distribution through currently, like, there's a program that drops off truckloads of food that come from Kansas City in a warehouse. And we're thinking, why can't we grow some of that? You know what I mean? If 100,000 pounds of potatoes are getting given out every month, why can't we try and get in a little bit of it?
Yep,
Uh,
I
so,
agree. Yeah.
I apologize. I do have to get out. I have another meeting here at 8:30. So you guys, I look forward to the recording.
See you, AJ.
Thank you, AJ.
Hey, Chris, are you interested, available to introduce yourself in your new position?
He direct messaged me and said he was gonna watch the recording because he's in 2 meetings. So he
Oh,
might
okay.
not be able to introduce himself, but Chris is with Soil Health, new in that position. I don't know if you have any other details to add, Rick.
As I understand his position, it's connected with Urban Ag also. So kind of my counterpart in a different organization in the state. So in the future, I hope that we work together on some projects and benefit groups like this.
All right, well, if no one else has any discussion topics or future areas of interest, I just have a few other things to point out. And then I can let you all be on your way. But I put my email next to the future topics of interest. If you think of anything or you're looking for resources on anything, feel free to email me and I can either answer your question or point you in the correct direction. Also, you all are able to use that Google group. So if you ever have a question, you can feel free to send out a message there. And at this point, this group has not been meeting regularly, but if you have any interest in starting regular meetings or wanted to plan a meeting to meet after kind of the season has started or next year when the season is ending, or would enjoy any kind of regular meeting schedule, let me know and I'm happy to set that up. Some of our other groups, the Farmers Market Coalition and the Flower Growers, they meet monthly, which I know not everyone enjoys, but there's quite a few members in this group now. So if anyone wanted to meet regularly, I'm happy to set that up.
I think if there's topics that people want to go over, you know, and there seems to be a demand, I'm fine with doing a monthly meeting. There's probably some that I'll miss in the summertime. But I'll just kind of leave that up to you, Morgan, if you think there's a demand for it. I don't feel strongly one way or the other on it.
I was thinking of maybe sending out another just quick form to see if anyone had any topics, and I may make meetings around those topics, or maybe it's some type of educational material that Rick or I are developing. But we've gotten quite a few new members in this group, which is exciting. And so I just want to answer the questions the best I can, if they're there.
Sure, makes sense.
All right, that is all that I have. I appreciate you all taking the time out of your Tuesday morning to join us. I'm gonna hang on till everyone jumps off to see if there's any other questions, but if you have no other questions, you feel free to hop off.
All right, thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.
See you, Jared.
Bye.